All right, hello everyone. My name is Stephen Keynes, and I serve as the Chief Innovation Officer and Budget Director for the City of San Jose. It's so good to be here for FutureLaw 2025 and to see, after 20 years, the center is not only standing strong, but continually growing. So it's so great to see so many familiar faces as well as new ones as well. For the roadmap for today, I'd like to introduce you into how San Jose is using AI to improve resident services, how are other jurisdictions tackling the same problems. I'll give you an introduction to the GovAI Coalition and also describe some of the strategies we employ to make sure that we have a robust ecosystem. Before we start, I just wanted to offer one quick message, which is that the through line between my work and everybody else is that access to justice was not only my first love, but gave me such an insight as to how to tackle these complex public problems. And CodeX, I really attribute so much to just my personal growth and where I am today. So thank you, CodeX. So as Roland mentioned, I wear two hats as the Innovation Officer as well as the Budget Director. During my time at CodeX, I was also able to contribute to the Oxford Handbook of AI Governance, which was extremely exciting. Some of my quick highlights between 2019 to 21 before I preceded the amazing Dr. Megan Ma, I was able to publish leading research on the ethics and regulation of facial recognition as well as surveillance AI. I was able to organize a social impact AN Law Bootcamp with Jay Mundell, which ultimately became an accredited course, so congratulations to you all. And then I also was able to build a tool during the pandemic which held a lot of state-specific resources for the general public. Just to give you a quick crash course on San Jose, for those of you who haven't been here, it's 30 minutes south of here. It's the 13th largest city in the US, with just under 1 million residents. The quick story of San Jose is really rapid growth. So within just one generation, we went to apple orchards to skyscrapers. And so with big cities come big problems, and that's been the excitement of our role, figuring out how can we scale responsibly. Here you'll find some quick stats on San Jose, which I hope will orient the conversation. We're an extremely diverse city with around 60% of residents speaking in language other than English at home around the dinner table. We have the largest overseas Vietnamese population in the world, and we have the rich legacy of Mexican-American worker rights with Cesar Chavez. We're also the HQ for PayPal, Zoom, Adobe, Cisco, and countless others. We have 91 venture-backed AI startups with $5.9 billion, and so it's really exciting to see that continuing going cadre of AI companies. And we also have a very skilled workforce, in part due to our local university, San Jose State, where 1 in 3 residents have a bachelor's degree, 1 in 5 work in manufacturing, and 1 in 5 hold degrees in STEM. So it's really exciting to see. I won't go into this slide because of time, but we call ourselves an A to Z city in that we do everything from airports to zoos. This is just a great example of some of the city services that we deliver. So what does the Chief Innovation Officer do? I get this question all the time at conferences. In short, my role leverages the ingenuity of Silicon Valley to improve San Jose livelihoods, access to opportunities, and city experience. I wanted to give a quick shout out to my team because I think we all come from different backgrounds, which is wonderful. So I bring the legal ethics side and also applied technology. Smita is a graduate of MIT, specifically working in hardware, and has specifically worked at major companies like Meta, specifically on various hardware projects. And then Keith serves in a role in terms of community engagement, standing up neighborhood associations, and the like. Now I'll dive into some of the city use cases that we have. So in the upper hand left, you'll see a transportation pilot where we've integrated AI into our traffic signaling prioritization. And the goal here is to incentivize folks to take the bus. And we know that time is one of the biggest factors when people decide their mode of transportation. And so what we've found is by integrating AI into these traffic lights, we've been able to reduce overall travel time on public buses by 15%, as well as decrease red light delay time by 20%. On the upper right, language translation is something that you're all very familiar with. When we deploy this at the city council meetings, so you'll see English, Spanish, and Vietnamese at all city council meetings, Spanish viewership increased over 300%. And so that's a great example of how when you build doors, people will enter. And so if you want to have robust community engagement, you need to be able to meet your constituency where they are. The third example on the screen is object detection. And so the simple idea is that 311, the way that you report potholes and other nuisances in your life, is a largely manual process. And so if you can add cameras to fleet vehicles like parking enforcement, you can identify road defects like potholes, oversized vehicles in places they shouldn't be, and the like. And so what's exciting is we had the first version of this pilot go out. We had 4 vendors testing at once. The Toyota Mobility Foundation saw what we were doing, said we love it, we'll fund phase 2. So there's currently an RFI out right now. So if you're interested in object detection and you have a responsive technology, please reach out to us. This slide specifically shows some of the various other places innovation is happening, specifically at the local level across the US. All of these use cases are presented at our GovAI Summit, which happens every winter. But specifically, you'll see on the left, Pittsburgh, PA, tree canopy. I know a lot of people feel that trees might just be merely aesthetic, but there's actually really strong public safety reasons to have a strong tree canopy. There's a lot of vulnerable populations, such as the youth and the elderly, who depend on making sure that tree coverage can keep things cool. AI for flood prevention is pretty explanatory. And then also the last example is referencing the fact that first responders typically spend a lot of their time filling out paperwork. And so if you're able to expedite some of that, you can have much more productive time out of your first line responders. So next I'll start talking about the GovAI Coalition. The next slide will get into some of the work products that we've developed, but just at a high level, this is a consortium of public agencies that are coming together to solve civic issues. And so just the basic principles are using AI for social good, ensuring ethical, non-discriminatory, and responsible AI governance, ensuring vendor accountability, improving government services, and fostering cross-agency collaboration and knowledge sharing. So this just shows a brief timeline that started in the fall of December 2023, where we just had a bunch of people on a Zoom call. And within a brief amount of time, we've grown to over 600 public agencies. And the GovAI Summit, which we just had, the first one in San Jose last December, had over 500 people attend, which was really wonderful, and we just kicked off phase 3. Here you'll find some of the resources the coalition has been able to generate in just a short amount of time. I won't go through each of these in length, but I'll also just describe the buckets that they focus on. So internal policies relates to the fact that San Jose was one of the first cities to have a robust privacy policy. So we've been able to take that, bottle it, improve it with the insight from our neighboring jurisdictions, and essentially be able to provide a lot of resources for smaller jurisdictions that don't have a privacy officer, do not have an innovation officer, who may have an IT director that's just focusing on keeping things on and not necessarily those big moonshot goals. And so things like the vendor AI fact sheet give public officials the questions to ask when these vendors are pitching them. And so we're able to arm a lot of these public officials with the knowledge that they need to move more confidently and swiftly in responding to some of our community's biggest challenges. For AI implementation, we're really figuring it, and we're really working to build the resources, not only just the policy specifically, but a lot of the training data, the models that you'll need. So I'll get into that in the next slide. But just to give you a quick example, the use cases repository is just a living document where we update with various use cases from cities so we can understand what did it take to launch the pilot, how successful is it, would you do it again, did you like the vendor, those types of things. And then finally, AI procurement, which is what the first phase was focused on, because if you can't procure it, you can't use it. And so we have a contract hub that holds executed contracts between public agencies and vendors. And so a constant question I'll get is, hey, how can you draft an indemnity clause with this vendor that you may not be familiar with? We have those contracts that are fully executed to share those with public agencies, so they will have at least a jumping off point, and the city attorney's offices can also be able to be part of the conversation. So here are models and databases. We only have 2 at the moment, but we're rapidly expanding. On the right side, I'll explain the database and then exactly what we use that for. Road safety images, as described in the object detection pilot, where again, we're taking pictures of potholes and other kind of defects. We've been able to collect these from around the country. We can feed that into our object detection model, as well as a model for blocked traffic signs detection. And so one way that you can improve traffic safety is making sure that stop signs don't just appear out of nowhere out of a bush, making sure that you're being mindful of the landscaping around these city assets to make sure that folks are safe. Language translation pairs are the ways that the government stores translations in different languages. So to give you an example, if there's a disaster preparedness memo that you put out to your community, if you have that in English, Spanish, and French, you've now created language pairs. So that's the way that the government organizes their training data. We have 27,000 of these that we've gotten from over 9 agencies, and we're using that to create a translation GPT, which is already available. And so this is something, again, that a lot of agencies can just pick up and go with. So this is a list of some of the partnerships we've been able to attract from the GovAI Coalition. I think it's really wonderful to see the different strata of government, specifically including the federal government. And so it's just really wonderful to see the amount of support we've gotten in such a little time of existence. Now I'd like to transition into what are the strategies we're using to make sure that we have a burgeoning AI ecosystem here in San Jose. The first is targeted incentive programs. We have an AI incentive program for folks that are interested in relocating to San Jose of 3 $50,000 grants and 1 $25,000 grant. So I'll have a QR code later for that. But we also have a number of downtown incentives as well to encourage folks to relocate to downtown. We have a number of events, such as an AI Innovator Meetup Series in downtown San Jose, so you can meet the local founders, investors, and the like. The next one will be April 17th at the WeWork in San Jose, where a lot of companies are headquartered there, so feel free to reach out. The CHIPS Act is something that you're all familiar with in terms of semiconductors. We've been able to write letters of support for companies like Infinera, who've been granted millions to build new fabs, which is really exciting to see. And we now have a new project for vertical data centers with West Bank and PG&E, with a really innovative idea that you'll have a mixed-use property where you'll have data centers and also connected to residential units. And the idea is that the heat from the data centers can be used to heat the apartment buildings. And so the idea is that you can use the same electron twice. So really excited to put shovels in the ground and really kind of experiment. How can you make sure that data centers are not only viable, but they are also additive to the assets around them? Next, we'll get into city partnerships because we can't do this alone. We signed an MOU with NVIDIA last December on workforce development, so that was amazing to get off the ground. The goal is to leverage their institutions as well as things like their Deep Learning Institute to be able to upskill and really advance the learning of San Jose employees. I mentioned our amazing downtown university called San Jose State. They have great programs like the Startup Incubator, which essentially allow university-affiliated folks to learn these startup skills and be able to build and find like-minded collaborators. We also have programs like the City Data Line, Alliance that's given us a short-term resident impact data project as well as a 3-year data strategy, and where we do a lot of work with philanthropy as well, through with folks such as the Knight Foundation. And then getting to the end here, looking at workforce and community development, because we need to bring folks along. We built an AI Commons with San Jose State and the city, where again, we're trying to focus on how can we upskill the general public. And so we have a lot of pre-recorded modules, but we're holding live in-person convenings as well. We also have an employee upskilling program that allows employees to bring problems that they're currently working on and receive assistance. Another thing that we've been doing is we have a semiconductor technician apprenticeship of what I call digital blue-collar jobs. And so we're finding ways to have actual internships with the Department of Labor that are paid and specifically often lead to employment afterwards. And so that's a great example of how we're building these new roles of the future, if you will. And then the final thing is around SJ Works. And so this is our summer internship program for youth. We've been able to place 70 youth at companies like Roku and NVIDIA last summer. And so we're making sure that we build a continuous pipeline. I'd like to close just kind of briefly touching on what I see as the future of AI in government and where I see the GovTech space heading. I think preserving institutional knowledge is a major thing. We've seen so much turnover at multiple levels of government, but being to ensure that the great ideas that you have don't leave with you when you go out the door is really crucial. Automating internal processes like permitting and procurement will be a constant bane of our existence, and so we're very much focused on doing that as well. We also very much believe in enhancing the resident experience and engagement, such as through the language translation pilot that I mentioned previously. And then finally, just increasing public safety and timely response, so finding ways to meet our public safety goals. So with that, this QR code will take you to the application link. So if you are a founder that wants money or knows a founder, please use that. But with that, thank you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak.